So last week, we measured. And this week, we're going to use tape. We're going to put down a couple layers of tape, trace everything. It's a much more accurate way of making a pattern. I know this is kind of a long series, a little more in-depth than normal, but like I said last time, this is fundamentals. This is leg day. So if this is your kind of thing, before we get too far into the video, maybe think about subscribing. I go over random stuff like this all the time, and I like focusing on fundamentals because I feel they get glossed over too easy. You know, how do you make a pattern? Well, you buy your pattern, and that's the pattern you use. I don't buy patterns; I make patterns. So maybe think about subscribing. If you're a returning visitor, maybe hit the like button a bit early. So let's jump into it. So we're going to measure the back now with tape. And I'll show you how that works. Handy dandy tape. If I had thicker stuff, it would work a little better. But I don't. Just cover the whole thing in tape. And try to make it as straight as possible. And just outlining all the areas I need to worry about. Go through a lot of tape this way. But if you're not willing to cut up your garment, this is the best way to make sure you're doing everything accurate to the article of clothing. The flatter everything lays, the more accurate your pattern is going to be. So now I'm just going to cover the whole thing in tape in time lapse. I'm a little upset. Just taping away, and I'm like, you know, it would be awesome. My cutting board, or not my cutting board, my ironing board. So I went to go get it, and went to look, and it stopped recording. So, this is where we're at. 2 layers. And I'm going to keep going. The nice thing about an ironing board is it is specifically designed to make things fit a bit better. And that'll definitely make what I'm doing here much easier. And I could probably bring you in so you can see it a little better too. So, get right back to where I was, taping and marking everything out. The more layers I do, the better this is going to turn out. I'm doing 2 layers, one going up and down, one going across. That just makes sure everything stays the same. This is always everybody's favorite part. I've also traced all of the pieces. That's important. I may put a couple just long pieces just to be on the safe side. I've also marked where the pocket starts and stops so I can line it up with the other side. Hey, look at that. Almost perfect amount. I'm not doing the full leg because honestly, after the inseam, it doesn't matter. It's just, you know, leg. And carefully peel everything up. This doesn't work on all fabrics, by the way. Like a velvet, you don't want to do this on a velvet. Anything with a weird texture, anything that's been painted. But for standard clothing, should be fine. And that, what the back pattern looks like. Without seam allowance, of course. There's no seam allowance here. Seam allowance free area. I just haven't done it yet. I just follow the line for as long as it needs to be, and we'll be good. First I'm going to trim everything up. I'll bring you in and show you what it looks like on paper. So here is our cut apart version, and then Not too shabby. I am pretty happy with that. I'm going to do 2 quick measurements. I'm going to measure how long this seam is and how long the outside seam, the outside hip seam, and then the inseam. The inseam is 31. From the pocket, it's 34. So remember, it's got that weird kick in, and I'm trying to even that out. About there. 12 wide. And bring you into 34. Let me double check that. That seems off. 31, that's why, because that's 34. Jeez Louise. So this is without seam allowance. I may kick the hip out more. I may just go straight from here because I want these a bit more, I really want these baggy. I think I like that better anyway. Just add an extra inch, but an inch really gonna make a difference. So, tape makes a way more accurate version, but it's time consuming and it uses a lot of material. Although I suppose once you calculate in all the measurements, it's about the same for time. It does take forever to measure everything. 6 of 1, right? This is no longer needed. This is of course without seam allowance, so we have to calculate for seam allowance. Which does make things a little more complicated, but not much. So it's not bad? Not bad. So I think we're ready to add seam allowance onto the outside here. Or the back piece, because the back piece is doubled. Now there's kind of a weird bump here at the hip. So I'm just going to even that out a little bit. As that's the transition to tape. I think that's better. So all I do, since I have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, is I'm going to measure 1/2 inch all the way around. It's actually that easy. I'm doing it in marker so you can see what I'm doing. So just 1/2 inch, make a mark. And this is going to even everything out as well. And seam allowance hides all our sins. And just as even as I can, I'm going to do one solid line. There's no easy way to do this. I could do a bunch of dots and just connect the dots. Same thing for the bottom. Maybe making the hem a little longer, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm going to have boots on, so I might not need it, but rather have and not need than need and not have. Now what you thinking? Weren't those pants too small? The answer is yes. Yes, they were. And as soon as I have the full pattern done, we will go over how to make them bigger. And the rest of this is all the same. Mark out 1/2 inch all the way around. Make my line. Real quick. Let me bring in for something. I'm adding 1/2 inch to this line, right? And what I'm doing is I'm using the line on the tape for my measurement. So for like a curve, I put the line on either side of the 1 inch mark and then just mark over 1/2 inch. That way I know I've got the angle right. Because at like this point here, half an inch is real. It could be just about anything. But as long as I use both edges of my 1 inch, it should give me a rough idea of where I want to be. I hope that makes sense. So now I have a rough arc that'll follow this and actually be half an inch. Cut the back panel out. Right? The next step, get the pockets done. So since I have this, I can kind of see, I'm going to try and line it up so I can just trace it. I can see enough. All right. One problem with paper rolls. They curl a lot. So that's that one. Alright, I'm going to cut these out, label them, and we're going to take a minute to appraise where we're at. I want to make sure my inseam, my outseam are the same size. I ironed everything, by the way. Just, it's easier. I don't have to deal with paper folding on me now. So we're going to start with the inseam, which is this one here. Measure the length. Make sure this is the same length. This should be pretty close. I may still add on to this, I'm not sure. Now I want to make sure the outside seam is the same. And this is where things get a little more complicated. Because the outside seam is kind of missing, which is why I marked where the pocket starts. I could also just line everything up and remark where the pocket starts. So mark these lines out. We have the leg front, the leg back, both pockets, the front feature, belt loops, and they had these little coin pockets, and there are little lighter pockets in the front. I was going to ignore that, but I'm like, I carry a lot of challenge coins on me. That's a perfect spot for them. So we got the little front pocket. We're missing 3 pieces at this point. We're missing the inside of the fly, the other side of the fly, and then the belt, the back inside belt piece. Super simple. They're right here. But we're going to measure them off of this. and I'll show you how we do that. The nice thing about Cavaricci's is the front and the back are symmetric, right? Or the left and the right are symmetric, I mean. This piece is the same as this piece, just backwards. The pieces we're missing are the fly piece. I'm using these to illustrate. That goes right there on the inside just because it's hard to show this piece. This other piece, which is the one that goes right here, it's what the zipper attaches to, right? And then the back piece, which is just a panel that goes all the way around and meets up in the back. To get these are super simple pieces, right? Almost everything is straight. This one's 2 inches by roughly 10 inches. And it's got a fold on the edge. And we are 2 inches by roughly 10 inches. So it's just a square. This is the exact outline of this stitch with a little bit of seam allowance. So I could just trace this entire stitch and this piece and have the front flap reinforcement. It's what the zipper gets attached to. And as far as the back goes, that is legitimately the entire length all the way around to the middle with just a line here. So all these measurements are super easy to make. Let me take care of those and then we'll pick up on modifying the existing pattern to be a little bigger. I'm about to say something that's going to make me feel horribly out of shape. I have to add 6 inches to these pants to make them fit. Painful. Painful to say. But not painful to do. First thing we need to do is move everything that we don't need to worry about out of the way. We have, I'm not going to add it there. Since this detail is pretty interesting and specific, I'm not going to mess with it. I need to add 1.5 inches to each panel. So that's 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches, which equals 3 inches per side, 6 inches altogether. It's not that big of a deal. For these pants in the front, I'm going to add it right here. The bee has found its way into my garage. Go on. And then on the back, I'm going to add it along here. I'm probably just going to add it to here and then just splay it out a little bit. I'll figure that out now. I'm going to sketch it up and tape it down and show you what I did. Like I said, adding extra length or extra width, not as big a deal as it seems. If I had added fabric anywhere else, I would have had to have extended this piece and the back piece. I'm going to have to extend on the back piece, not a big deal. But putting them here in the front isn't going to change, and in the back, isn't going to change the look of the pants, isn't going to change the feel of the pants, more important. So, this is what I did. I added 1.5 inches up here, and I tapered it down to just past the thigh, or right at the thigh. That way it's not going to affect the look of this area at all. Same with the back, right? Or the same with the front, I mean. I brought it down, so that's not going to, that taper isn't going to affect the rest of the front. Now all I have to do, add 6 inches onto the very back, and we're done. At least with the pattern. That's it. It's pattern making. Ways we went over, cutting the garment apart, absolute best way to do it, period. It gives you an exact shape, an exact size. It's flawless. Second best, tape. Tape worked fantastic. Third, measuring everything, lining everything up. That's tricky, takes time, but it's not overtly difficult, right? So we made patterns, for a pair of soldier pants. I think they're going to turn out fantastic. That'll probably be the next video. Maybe. I've got a big convention coming up, and I've got a lot of prep work to still do for that. So, who knows? No matter what, the only way to find out is to stick around. I'm glad you made it this far in the video. Maybe like, subscribe, watch a couple other videos, leave a comment or two, you know, just the usual. So, I'll see you next time.